is March, and I'm back with another Basement Box book unboxing. So yes, I've been doing these unboxings, hauls, and unhauls of all the books that I have in the basement for the last few months. I filmed most of them in quick succession, and I haven't filmed one for a while. I'm down to the last few boxes. So what I have here mostly is some loose books that had to come out of a wet box, which look like they're mostly comics. And then I have two really small boxes, which were packed in 2023. So I don't know how many of these books we're actually going to get rid of, but part of the goal of these unboxings, hauls, and unhauls is to unhaul, because I needed to go through all those books in the basement and pare down what I had. A lot of the books end up going back down in the basement. A lot of books end up going on various bookshelves, either my reference shelves, my baseball shelves, my red shelves, my TBR, and then hopefully we also unhaul quite a few books. Like I said, today I don't know how many we're actually going to unhaul, but the first book that I see is Atlas of Weapons and War by John Williams. This is a big picture book with artwork and diagrams of various things. This book will definitely go on our reference shelf. Most big picture books like this, coffee table books, end up going there. I do need to go through those reference books and pare them down. We have quite a lot. One of the things that I learned during this process is that I have way too many reference books. I have way too many comics. I was originally keeping every comic that came by, but I have subsequently gone through those comics again and gotten rid of some comics because we just have too many comics. I will be going through all our comics at some point. I don't think I'm going to film it though. Maybe I will do a video about my comics collection after I've pared it down. The next book is Story of American Art. This is very moldy. I definitely need to clean this one off. And this is another beautiful coffee table style book with lots of different artwork in it. We will often pick up books like this for cut up, for reference, because they seem interesting. We haven't done so as much in recent years, but that one we're going to keep and we will put in the reference books. Next is a giant book of the American Horticultural Society Encyclopedia of Garden Plants. Beautiful book again. Oh, this one's amazing. It's like huge pictures, every plant you could want to imagine, definitely going in our reference books. The first comic that we have is Brian Michael Bendis' Jinx. I really do love Brian Michael Bendis' work, but I've never read this one. I think I would keep it just because it's his. Next we have Demo, Brian Wood and Becky Cloonan. I have also really liked their work, and I have also not read this one, but I think I would keep this one as well. This is the Starman Omnibus by James Robinson, Tony Harris, and various others. This is pretty. I am not familiar with this work. DC, I'm not as big of a DC person as I am a Marvel person, just because I do love Batman, but other than that I don't usually love all the DC stuff unless we're talking Dark Horse maybe. I will keep that one in the comics for now. I'm probably going to keep most of these, but we'll see. Speaking of Marvel, here is a Uncanny X-Force. I can see Psylocke here and Wolvie. This one looks really beautiful. Definitely keeping that. Here's just a single issue, which has a David Mack cover. David Mack is one of my all-time favorite artists. He wrote Kabuki in the 90s and early 2000s, and then he kind of moved on to just doing covers. This is just a single issue, so I will be keeping it. For Tomorrow is a Superman by Brian Azzarello, Jim Lee, Scott Williams. I do love Jim Lee's work, which is probably why we have this. And because it's Jim Lee, I think I would keep it and at least read it. Another DC is Justice League of America, The Tornado's Path by Brad Meltzer and Ed Benz. This one, a lot of these comics I've got because people have given them to me or because I had free access to some of them. This one is like a maybe. I don't know if I necessarily need to keep that one, but we'll put it in the comics for now. Also, we got a lot of these comics from our friend Alex, who gave us all the, well, not all of them, but the majority of the Sherlock Holmes books because he really likes comics in general. Here's another in the For Tomorrow series, more Jim Lee art. Speaking of Sherlock Holmes, here's Hound of the Baskervilles. Tales, which was adapted by J.R. Parks. I don't love the artwork in this, so I think this can be an unhaul. Mr. X is by Dean Motter and various others. This one's interesting because it's like almost like old style. I don't think it's an old comic, but it is like older style of illustration. Keep that for now. Another Superman book. It looks like it has Supergirl in it and Batman. This has various different artists, but it was written by Jeff Loeb, who I really enjoy. Another one worth keeping and looking at, but maybe would go. Next we have 2 Green Lantern books. I'm not a huge Green Lantern person, so these are definitely maybes, but we'll put them in the comics pile for now, and when we go through the comics, we'll go through everything. Shadowhawk. I actually don't. This is like, looks like an older comic, maybe from like the 90s, all collected. And I do see a 90s character that I recognize. The dragon. He was an Image comic person, and this is Image Comics. We'll keep that one. Another Uncanny X-Force with Psylocke. Another few Uncanny X-Forces. I think I bought those because they were Psylocke and Wolverine stories. Terminal City by Dean Motter and Michael Lark. This is another one that like looks old, but I don't know if it's actually old. Pretty neat. Heroes for Hire, Civil War. Another DC. Captain America's in there. Not super interested in that one, but we'll keep it. Asteros. I actually don't even know what this book is called. Oh, it's got beautiful end papers. This book is quite moldy. Definitely needs to get cleaned, but it is very pretty. Keep it in the comics section for now. Out of the loose books, we are keeping the vast majority, which are comics, and then we are keeping 3 reference books, and we are unhauling 1 comic. The first of the small boxes was packed 5/23, May of 2023, and it says vintage sci-fi. So my dad has given us a lot of vintage sci-fi over the last couple of years because he is also paring down his bookcases and his books and his bookshelves. So he had tons of vintage sci-fi from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and we would love to keep them all, but we can't keep them all. So I've been going through, reading a little bit about the books, and deciding whether to haul or unhaul them. The first book in this box is Titan by John Varley. It has a centaur on the cover. This seems to be about a titan, a giant creature named Gaia, who does something in the world. I don't particularly need this book, but I'm going to put it in a maybe pile to see if my husband wants it. Next we have Wizard by John Varley. I think this can go in, oh, it seems like maybe this is a sequel because it talks about some of the same people. So I think this can go in the maybe category as well. Songs from the Stars by Norman Spinrad. We had another Norman Spinrad book in the Basement Box books at some point. This seems to be like way in the future, after some kind of post-apocalyptic issue happened, and now there's a new civilization of Aquaria, which flourishes on the west coast of the United States. I'm going to keep this one. It sounds kind of interesting. This is a book that I thought I had already unhauled. So this is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I read, I think, like the first couple of pages of this and wasn't really sure about it, and then I thought I had unhauled it. I'm going to go ahead and unhaul it. Here's a vintage mass market paperback by Robert Silverberg, Born with the Dead, 3 novellas about the spirit of man. I'm going to keep that one, put it back in the basement. Anne Rice, Pandora, New Tales of the Vampire. So I think this is a continuation of the Vampire Chronicles. I've read a couple of the Vampire Chronicles, but I have not read this one. I will keep it. I want to reread the Vampire Chronicles that I've already read. I did recently, since joining BookTube, reread Interview with a Vampire. I've read that many times and I loved it. I have yet to reread The Vampire Lestat, so I will keep this and hopefully eventually get to it. Robert A. Heinlein, Space Cadet. I'm keeping all Robert A. Heinlein's. I really like his writing of what I've read of it, and I love vintage mass market paperbacks. Robert E. Howard, Cull, the complete edition, first complete edition. Robert E. Howard, did he also write Conan and he wrote Cull? I'm not sure. I know my husband was going to read some of these, but I can't remember if it was the Cull books or the Conan books. So I think I'll keep this one out and see if my husband wants to read that one. Chekhov's Enterprise, A Personal Journal of the Making of Star Trek, The Motion Picture by Walter Koenig. I will definitely be keeping this one, but I don't think I need to keep it out. I will put it in the basement. Another Robert A. Heinlein, Grumbles from the Grave. I think this is actually like a memoir of his. Another Robert A. Heinlein, The Rolling Stones. The Hills Were Liars by Riley Hughes. I think I got this one just for the vintage cover, and it is beautiful. So we can keep it and put it in the basement. Farmer in the Sky by Robert A. Heinlein. Tunnel in the Sky by Robert A. Heinlein. I wonder if those are connected. Podcane of Mars by Robert A. Heinlein. The Trouble Twisters by Poul Anderson. I am not a big Poul Anderson person just because I haven't read his work yet, but he is a vintage sci-fi author that my husband really likes, so we will be keeping this one, but we can put it in the basement. Well, I remember picking this one up because the cover was so beautiful. It is A.E. Van Voigt, The House That Stood Still. I love this vintage mass market paperback. Love that cover. I don't need to keep it out though. Put it in the basement. Damon Knight Off Center is another classic sci-fi author that I've never read, but I have quite a few books of, so I should eventually read one of his, but this is going in the basement. Ooh, Flash Gordon. What a great movie tie-in cover. The only book of the film. It says exclusive 8 pages of color photos from the film. My dad is a huge Flash Gordon fan. I'm not sure if this came from him or not, but we can put it in the basement. Arms of Nemesis by Stephen Saylor. This is a mystery of ancient Rome. I don't remember this book at all. I don't think I'm really interested in that, actually. Seems like a historical fiction mystery, but I don't even know I have this, so I'm going to put this in the Unhaul pile. And finally in that box is Thomas Perry, The Butcher's Boy. I think my husband got this one as well, but I also think that this wasn't the book that he wanted to get, that maybe there was another Butcher title book or something. I can't remember, but we'll put it back in the basement for now, and we'll see if he wants it later. Or maybe, you know what, we'll put it in the maybe pile, and we'll have him see if he wants it, because I don't think I'm interested in this, but he might be. That means we have 3 in the maybe pile, 2 that we're unhauling, 1 that is either going on the TBR or back in the basement, 15 that are going back in the basement from that box. The next little box that we have says Good Books packed 10/21/23. So we're getting like much closer to our current time. And I definitely remember that these were ones that I probably will all keep. I did pack up some books at the very end of 2023, like the very end, and those I didn't even bother to look at again because it was too close to this unboxing. But there might be books in some of these later boxes that I could get rid of. So we're just going to fly through these because the majority of them are going to stay. The Batman Murders, mystery about Batman, but it's like not a comic, it's like a book. Definitely keeping. Groucho and Me, a memoir by Groucho Marx. I am interested in, but who knows when I'll ever read it. Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. I am interested in this book from the 60s. Selected Letters of Gertrude Bell. I don't really know who Gertrude Bell is, but I thought this was a cool vintage copy and an interesting book. Baby Would I Lie by Donald Westlake. This one I might have a duplicate of. Let me check all my notes that I made from prior boxes. If I have a duplicate, I might get rid of that one. The Frances Affair by Josephine Tey and 3 by Josephine Tey. My mom wants me to read Josephine Tey. I have never read this Golden Age mystery author. I do want to, and I do already have some books on my TBR from them, but I have also heard that Josephine Tey is like one of the more racist and volatile of the Golden Age mystery writers, so I don't know how I'm going to get along with her. This is The Day of Their Return by Poul Anderson, keeping, but putting in the basement. I picked up K.K. Beck, Young Mrs. Cavendish, and the Kaiser's Men because it sounded like an interesting, like 1980s mystery story. I am still interested in it. I just don't know when I'll get to it. Marjorie Ellingham is another of the Golden Age mystery authors. I think she's a little bit more espionage spy of mystery. I am interested in her writing, but I have so many mysteries on my TBR that this one can stay in the basement. Frank Herbert. I've only ever read Dune by Frank Herbert, but I would like to read some of his other books, and this is The Green Brain. Glory Lane by Alan Dean Foster. I think I've read this, but I really can't remember anything about it. I went through a small Ellen Dean Foster sci-fi fantasy period. I'm gonna keep it. Maybe one day I'll revisit. This is Touch Not the Cat by Mary Stewart. I think I got this because I didn't know if it was actually a cat book or not, but I think it's like sci-fi mystery, so it sounds interesting. H.G. Wells' The Food of the Gods. I do really want to read this one day, but I don't necessarily need to keep it out. Isaac Asimov, Nine Tomorrows. We'll keep the Isaac Asimovs. I've never read an Isaac Asimov, but one day I will. Dean Ing Cat House. I think this was just for the cat cover. I also think this is related to the Larry Niven Ringworld books and the cat people in those, so I do want to keep it. Another Isaac Asimov, Robot City. Another Poul Anderson, Starfarers. A Philip K. Dick, The Solar Library. I think we actually have a couple of copies of this now, but this is a great vintage cover. Arthur C. Clarke, Tales of 10 Worlds. Definitely keeping this. Interesting, vintage sci-fi. Another Isaac Asimov, writing as Paul French, Lucky Stars, The Pirates of the Asteroids. I think Lucky Star is like a roguish, caddish, Zaphod Beeblebrox type hero adventurer. Robert A. Heinlein, The Green Hills of Earth. Another Lucky Star book, Lucky Star and the Big Son of Mercury by Isaac Asimov. Another Frederick Pohl, great vintage cover. Totally amazing. Demon in the Skull. And last but not least, another Frederick Pohl book, A Plague of Pythons. This is a really beat up copy, beautiful vintage cover, but we actually have a more pristine copy of this book. So theoretically, one of them could go, but I think we're going to keep both for right now. All right, so out of that box, we're keeping everything except we're going to check on the Donald Westlake. So those are two of the most recently packed books and two of the last few books that we have to talk about in these basement box books. I think there's a couple of boxes that have Japanese books in them that we'll go through quickly, and then I think we're done. So I will do a wrap up to this whole series at some point. Let me know if you've read any of the books here. Let me know if you think I should put any of them on my TBR or if I should get rid of any of them. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.